Hello, everybody. We have moved on to our next lecture. It's called Speech of Introduction. And this lecture serves two purposes. Number one, it's going to explain everything we need to know for this first speech assignment, speech of introduction. And secondly, yes, there's quite a few questions on exam one from this lecture. So twofold purpose for this lecture. So let's get right into it. Speech of introduction. Next week, we are going to introduce a fellow classmate to the class. We'll call them our partner. The timing of this speech is 2 minutes. Be careful not to go overtime, but it's a 2-minute speech. You want to aim for about 1 minute and 45 seconds. You will be introducing a fellow classmate to the audience during that minute and 45 seconds. And the assignment is worth 5 points. So not a lot of points, but it's kind of an icebreaker assignment. And what I like about this assignment is that early on, we will know our public speaking strengths and our public speaking weaknesses from this simple assignment. So first, in class, what will we be doing together to launch this assignment? Well, you're going to interview a fellow classmate. We'll call him, again, your partner. Collect lots of information during this interview. You'll do this in class. Write down this information, document everything, or put it on your electronic device, whatever you need to do, but definitely document this. Don't just try to commit this to memory. Be sure you have permission to go public with this information as well. So if your partner tells you something that may seem a bit personal, just ask them, oh, do I have permission to share this with the entire class? So this is what we will do in class together. What about when you go home privately? Well, at home, you want to organize this material to fill, like I said, approximately 1 minute and 45 seconds worth of speaking time. Now, you don't even have to figure out or guess how to start this speech. I'm going to tell you right now. The first words out of your mouth when you're up there in front of the audience is to verbalize your partner's first and last name, something like this. So today, I want to introduce to you my new friend, Veronica Castillo. First and last name. And then after that, just go right into your speech. Minute and a half or so, minute and 45 seconds of talking about the person. And then how do you end? Pretty much the same thing. Verbalize her first and last name, something like this. So that's a bit about my new friend, Veronica Castillo. And then you're done. Again, everything else, there's really no rules. You decide what to talk about for that in-between portion. I'm really giving you some strong direction for your opening line and your closing line, but everything in between, in the middle, I just leave that up to you. You can talk about whatever you want to talk about regarding your new friend. Practice, practice, practice. This, of course, you will also do at home. So don't try to wing this, but practice, practice, practice. You'll have your notes in front of you. Practice, practice, practice. Now, this is a slide that is a snapshot from our first lecture of the semester that we had. And I just want to remind you, remember, there are two broad areas of public speaking, delivery and content. You remember that from our opening lecture. Well, the reason why I circled this in red right here is because this speech assignment, speech of introduction, is primarily an exercise in delivery. That's why I circled this in red here, because we will be focusing on public speaking delivery with this project, with this speech assignment. Remember, delivery is how you present your message. It's not what you say. I'm pretty much less concerned about what you say in this speech, but I'm very concerned how you say it, how you communicate it. So it's everything else. And that's what we're going to talk about in this lecture right now, is speech delivery. That's how you're going to be graded. In fact, this right here is your grading rubric. I'm going to call it a criteria sheet. In fact, for the rest of the semester, I'm going to call the rubric a criteria sheet. This is the criteria sheet for this 5 points speech of introduction. There are 5 items on here. Each one is worth 1 point. The first item does have a little bit more to do with content, but these other 4 items right here are hardcore public speaking delivery areas. And again, we're going to talk all about this in this lecture right now. Timing is no more than 2 minutes. Aim for about 1 minute and 45 seconds, and you are as good as gold. All right. So we need to break down each of these items on the criteria sheet piece by piece, all 5 items. Let's start with number 1, credibility. Give credibility to your partner, including pronouncing your partner's first and last name correctly. Let's spend a few minutes on giving credibility to your partner. This basically means portraying your partner as likable. We want to fall in love with them, as it were, by the time you're done with your speech. Your job is to portray them in this way so that we super, super duper like them by the end of your speech. So you certainly want to be very positive when you speak about your partner. Yeah, like we just mentioned, pronounce your partner's first and last name correctly and smoothly. Their first and last name should roll off of your tongue like butter, like you've known them your whole life. That, by the way, is giving them true credibility as well. And you're giving them credit, showing that you respect their name and you know your partner quite well also. This could be a little tricky for some of us, including my last name. Some of us who have last names that are not very familiar, and even some of us have first names that are a little bit less familiar. So we may have to practice at home how to pronounce and how to publicly say or verbalize our partner's name correctly. We're going to avoid all forms of sarcasm in this assignment. Sarcasm typically isn't really respected anyway in public speaking in general. Audiences typically don't like sarcasm, believe it or not. I don't know if that surprises you or not, but we're going to avoid sarcasm altogether. So when you're talking about your partner, only positivity. Shine positive light on them, please. Talk about positive things, lift them up, figuratively speaking. Avoid, quote, like making fun of them via sarcasm. Avoid it altogether. If we accidentally do that, we'll simply lose a point there. All right, let's go on to area number 2, extemporaneous. Yeah, we want to be extemporaneous when delivering this speech. This is a word we may have heard before, but we're going to clarify what it truly means when it comes to public speaking. It's basically carefully planned in advance. Your speech, that is carefully planned in advance. Yeah, with much practice. You spent time putting this speech together at home. It includes an outline. However, notice this, not a word for word for word for word script. You're not writing this thing out word for word. Now, I will say this, okay, I'm just going to be transparent here. I'm technically not going to look at what you have in front of you while you give this speech. I'm not going to collect anything for this first speech, this speech of introduction. I'm not going to see what you have in front of you because yeah, you will be bringing your notes up with you at the podium. So I'm technically not going to monitor it. However, for this first assignment, I will be monitoring it in the future. But you want to be careful here because if you do write this thing out word for word, almost like a paragraph style essay, ouch, then you will find that you will not be extemporaneous. So no public readings allowed. Instead, speak naturally. You can look at the audio, excuse me, you can look at your notes. You should look at your notes, but you want to look at the audience quite a bit and you want to speak naturally. I like what our textbook says regarding being extemporaneous. It says this is considered planned conversation. I like that expression. You're being conversational, but at the same time, you have carefully crafted this speech, not word for word, but your ideas are in front of you in your notes. So, like I said, we're still talking about extemporaneous. Like I said, do not read to the audience. Audiences don't like that. They don't want to be read to, they want to be spoken to. Give generous eye contact to the entire audience. Now, I know everybody. I know. Trust me, I know this is not easy. I totally get it. The comfortable, secure thing to do is to stare at your notes the whole time and to not look out there at that scary audience, right? It's scary with all these people looking at us. We have to do it. We have to break outside of this comfort zone, outside of our box. We have to do it. Here's what we're looking at, everybody. At least 70% eye contact with the audience and 30%, yeah, it's okay to look down at your notes 30% of the time. This is considered 100% acceptable across the board in all public speaking classes in America. This isn't just my my formula. No, no, no. This is absolutely universally accepted, at least in Western public speaking, and particularly here in America. So you have that comfort to look down nearly a third of the time. That's pretty nice. Collect your thoughts. And then you look back up at the audience. There's something called the 2x2 principle. As we do this with the audience, we're looking down at our notes, looking at the audience. Look down at your outline or your notes, briefly collect your thought, then look up at one person for about 2 seconds, look at another person for a couple of seconds, maybe even a third person for a few seconds. And then, yeah, you can look back down at your notes and collect your next thought and repeat the process. Now, we're certainly not saying to be robotic by any means. No, you're not some robot doing this. It's not a rule. This is merely a principle, as you can see here. It's a guiding principle where you just sort of want to have that flow where you're looking down, collecting your thought, looking back up for a few seconds at a few different people. It's called the 2x2 principle. So all of this represents being extemporaneous, plenty of eye contact with the audience, being conversational, not reading to the audience. All right, next on our criteria sheet, number 3, poise. We want to be a poised speaker. What does that mean? It means to be dignified and to demonstrate composure. Yes, dignity, composure. It means we're nervous, which is totally normal and human, but it means we've got this under control. And the audience isn't looking at a person who is showing all these visible signs of being excessively nervous. We are nervous, but we find a way to rise above that and to demonstrate composure. We have it under control. But again, we don't want those nerves to completely go away. Why? Because being somewhat nervous keeps us on our toes, keeps us humble, and it also means that we care about our assignment. There's more to talk about regarding poise here. Here are some do's and don'ts, mainly some don'ts here. Okay. Stand up straight. Don't slouch. All right. Stand up straight. Don't slouch. Don't lean on the podium, just kind of overly casual, leaning on the podium. Oh, yeah, this is a big one, everybody. Keep your hands out of your pockets. Ouch. If our hands go in our pockets while we're giving a speech, that is a big fat ouch. We'll definitely lose a point there if we do that. Don't grip the podium. I mean, obviously, it's okay to occasionally touch the podium. There's no rule against that. But some students, out of insecurity, grip that podium for dear life. We want to avoid that. Avoid shifting your weight back and forth from left to right. It's just a nervous tick. moving kind of in this swaying motion back and forth. After a while, as an audience member, we get dizzy watching the speaker go back and forth. Again, it's just a nervous tick. Keep both feet flat on the floor. Again, we're not being overly critical here. Certainly, we can move about, but if we're constantly moving our feet and all these nervous wiggles in our feet and so forth, then that's just a sign of really a lack of poise. Another thing is playing with our hair, playing with our jewelry, playing with anything we can get our fingers on, holding like an object in our hand like a pen and playing with it. All of these things demonstrate a total lack of poise. All right, this next slide is important. It's another area of poise, but it's a big one, everybody. You ready for this? Word fillers, or some people call them filler words. Oh my goodness, this is such a big one, especially for new speakers. Oh, wow. What are word fillers? I think many of you know already. Uh, um, like, you've all heard it many, many, many times. People speaking, whether it's a speech or whether it's everyday life, we've all heard it. People spewing out loads and loads and loads of excessive word fillers, tons and tons of ums and ahs. I know it's difficult, everybody. We need to flush these out. We need to flush them out. Now, if we have maybe two word fillers, maybe three for a 2-minute speech, we may be okay. And the reason we say that is because it's normal for a human being to have an occasional word filler. Nobody's losing sleep over that. However, the problem is, especially when we're insecure and nervous, we spew out tons and tons of word fillers. And I hate to tell everybody this, but audiences really don't like that. They annoy audiences. I think that's an exam question right there. Every slide pretty much is an exam question, but I'm remembering something about that on the exam. Audiences almost hate excessive word fillers. Let's be careful here, everybody. All right, let's move on to number 4, a fancy word here, modulation. What does this fancy word mean? Well, all it means is vocal variety. Yeah, modulation is moving our voice around, varying the sound of our voice so it doesn't sound monotone, right? We want to avoid that monotone, that flatline way of speaking where there's no variation to the sound of our voice. We need peaks and valleys, movement with the sound of our voice so that our voice has life to it. That word monotone is equivalent to monotonous, right? We don't want to be monotonous with the sound of our voice. So we want to modulate our voice. We're going to spend a couple minutes on this one, everybody. We want to convey ideas clearly and stir emotion. This is the definition of modulation right here. Convey ideas clearly and stir emotion by doing these 3 things here, varying our volume, pitch, and pace. Moving those 3 things around, peaks and valleys, highs and lows, if you will. Let's break each one down. All of this is on the exam. Let's start with number 1, volume. Volume is how loud we speak or how soft we speak. It's our volume. Your favorite song comes on, what do? You turn up the volume so that it's louder. Now, this one of the 3, this one might be a little bit less, I guess you could say, important in a classroom the size of our classroom. Everyone in the room should be able to hear us. We do need to always speak a little bit louder when giving a speech than we do in everyday life. So our volume should be a little louder, even though we're not mic'd up with a microphone. But there's times where we may lower that volume as well. Pitch is how high or how low you speak. Let me illustrate that for you. If we're really, really excited about something, like we're talking about spending a day at Disneyland, then our pitch goes up, right? We're excited about that, a higher pitch. However, if we're talking about the death of a loved one, maybe our partner gave us permission to talk about the death of a family member, we have a lower tone to the sound of our voice, a somber tone, because it's more serious, to lower pitch. So that's what we mean by a high or a low pitch. Number three is a really important one, everybody. I'm kind of a big stickler with pace, how fast or how slow you speak. It's also called our speech rate, and it's our speed in terms of the way we speak. Everybody, we need to mix this up. We really, really do. I'm going to give you a public speaking gem I want you to take with you for the rest of your life. Everybody remember this regarding pace, okay? If we're talking about something that's a little bit less important, it's okay to speak faster. However, if we need to say something really important, pause, slow down, and say it more slowly. Then the audience will get the point and you just grabbed their attention. And then we can speed back up and talk a little bit faster after that. Everybody, we really need to change our pace. You got to trust me on that one. Okay. That's an important one. Move this pace around when you give speeches. Let's go to number 5, our last area of speech delivery, gestures. And yes, we are specifically talking about hand gestures, arm gestures, hand-arm movement while we give a speech. We're not some stiff statue up there. No, we're a human being. We naturally move our hands and arms when we speak. We all do it. We definitely need to do that while giving a speech to an audience. The problem is when we're nervous, all of our muscles tighten up and we may hesitate subconsciously to use gestures because our muscles have tightened up because we're nervous. We need to bust out of that. Relax, have fun, be comfortable with your audience, and move those hands around. We're going to spend a couple minutes on this one, everybody. There are 2 types of gestures. We definitely need to know these 2 types of gestures. Very important right here. All right. Let's break these 2 types of gestures down. Please know them well. Area number 1, or I should say the first type of gesture we're talking about. They're called emphatic gestures. Gestures that emphasize or reinforce what you are saying. Of the 2 gestures we're talking about, the first one being emphatic gestures, I expect to see a lot of these, more of these than the second one we're going to talk about. It's what we see going on in the image here of Barack Obama. He is using an emphatic gesture. There's no special meaning to that hand movement other than he's just adding support to his spoken word. That's it. That's all an emphatic gesture is. It's just emphasizing the spoken word. It's that natural hand movement that we do when we speak. That's it. There's no additional meaning to that particular motion of our hand. However, this second type of gesture is called descriptive gestures, and there are very specific meanings to all of these descriptive gestures. Here's our definition. Hand gestures, including signs that communicate information about what you are discussing, such as the size or shape of objects. It's what we see in this image here of Condoleezza Rice. She is displaying a descriptive gesture. She is explaining something verbally, but then her fingers, her hands are helping her, right? She's no doubt describing the size of something. You can also point. I'm from Los Angeles, and you point in the direction of Los Angeles, right? You can also do this with your fingers. First, I'm going to talk about this in my speech. Secondly, I will talk about such and such in my speech. And then thirdly, see, using those fingers, all of these types of gestures are called descriptive gestures because we are describing something specifically. Please know these 2 different types of gestures.